Yes. So, and that kind of includes last night's bout between the Rockets and Mavs. There were a total of 8 techs and 2 flagrants. Patrick Beverley got into a verbal spat with Mavs coach Rick Carlisle. James Harden had some choice words for Andrew Bogut, but Bogut said a hard pick on him. And then after the game, Trevor Ariza tried to confront Salah Mesri outside the Mavs locker room. A source told ESPN's Calvin Watkins that Mesri made a not-so-nice comment about Ariza's wife and children late in the game. You don't want to do that. James Harden after the game.
I don't know what they was on tonight. That other team was tripping tonight. Just disrespectful, unprofessional, players and coaches. I don't know what was their problem, but yeah, that got us going. You know, we wanted to throw a little cheap shot and you know, just woke us up a little bit, and then it was over from there.
Is that what got Trevor a little upset?
That and some other words that was said, but like I said, I don't know what they was on. It was tripping.
What's your reaction, Coach?
Well, I don't like it. I think when you're talking about not even a playoff game, but this is a regular season game in December, this goes way too far. When you've got to bring in multiple police officers after the game, multiple security guys, teammates, it should stay on the court. And I won't go so far as to say it was dirty, but if James Harden says it was dirty, he was out there, then he would know. I don't like this look at all. I'm all about having fun. I'm all about a little trash talk, but it should be competitive, and there should be a certain level of sportsmanship, even if you're in the same area and you're a rival in the state of Texas. But this is going way too far, bringing families into it. I just don't like it, and I don't like to see it.
You know, I think I don't take James Harden at his word. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why I would believe James Harden over Rick Carlisle or anyone else involved in that incident. I think we have 2 biases. We often filter these confrontational aspects through. One, the star bias. Who's the biggest star? Because we're probably going to believe him. Who is the biggest name involved in this entire thing? Right now, that happens to be James Harden. Dirk Nowitzki over the long haul, James Harden right now. So we're going to listen to James Harden. We're going to believe him. And number 2, the other bias is who's the better team? The Rockets are the better team right now. We're inclined to believe that the team that is worse is the one doing wrong. For whatever reason, that's got to be the dirty team. That's got to be the team in the wrong. I don't know why that connection is made. Why is the team with the worst record between the two also the one wrong in this incident? I don't know who's right or wrong, but I do know this. Patrick Beverley is telling me that Rick Carlisle isn't classy. Patrick Beverley is baiting Rick Carlisle at a press conference after the game. So I'm supposed to believe, based on these clips, that Dirk Nowitzki is playing dirty, Rick Carlisle is coaching dirty, and I don't know anything about Mesri. I know where he's from. I know what kind of position he plays. I don't know anything about his character. The Mesri is also somehow in the wrong ear. And the Rockets were just angels to this process.
Trevor Ariza was thrown out. That's what I was going to get to. I'm just saying based off of the play. I'm not saying that James Harden was in the right, but I'm talking as far as dirty play is concerned, that's what he said. If he says it's a hard foul, now we're watching it though. Basketball's different than football and other things where you've got a million things that you're watching. You're watching guys on one half of the court most all the time, and there are enough cameras that you're going to pick it up. From what I saw, both teams were in the wrong, which is why I said I don't like this. I don't like when a player yells at a coach. I don't like when a coach yells at a player.
Yeah.
I don't mind when the player yells at the coach because I understand that things happen.
Opposing coach, I mean.
Opposing coach, okay.
Coach.
I don't mind that the coach yells at the player, but I think the moment a player starts talking real dirty and personal about to another player, like the wife and the family, that's just going way too far.
Mesri denies he did that. Specifically, ESPN.com denies that he said any of those things.
By the way, Mr. Class, have you ever accidentally blurted out something that you regret?
Have I?
Yeah, have
On
you?
the air?
No. I'm talking about when you're playing sports, like on a basketball court. Because I've heard some things about you and your softball league.
Well, no, but I was the manager of the team, and sometimes you got to come down on your players a little bit to get the most out of them.
Okay.
So
you ever waited outside the locker room?
I own it. Did I go a little bit too far when I managed the softball team? I don't play anymore. There were times. I will own it. There were times, maybe a little far for a.
I heard things get feisty with the ESPN softball league.
Yeah. It did.
Anywho, coming up, the juicy quotes from George Karl's tell-all book, Just Keep On Coming. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The latest scoop is that he says the NBA has a steroid problem. Do the guys think this is true? What is the prevalence of steroids and PEDs in the NBA? Well, according to Furious George, that would be George Karl in the name of his new book, the association needs to take them a lot more seriously. And here's an excerpt from his new book. It's obvious some of our players are doping. How are some guys getting older, yet thinner and fitter? How are they recovering from injuries so fast? Why the hell are they going to Germany in the off-season? I doubt it's for the sauerkraut. More likely it's for the newest, hard-to-detect blood boosters and PEDs they have in Europe. I think we want the best athletes to succeed, not the biggest, richest cheaters employing the best scientists. So guys, is Karl right about PEDs in the NBA? Well,
I think he is. I think it would take an astounding amount of naivety to believe there's not PEDs in the NBA. You can go with very superficial evidence. You can just say, look at the players today versus the players 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Look at the size difference. We're looking at superhuman players, not just in height, but in muscle tone, in mass, in weight, in athleticism. Look at guys playing longer into their career, later into their 30s. These are things that don't just happen. Yes, human beings get faster with time. Track times go down. Times in the swimming pool go down. We generally do improve, but not at that kind of rate. But here's the biggest argument for why there's PEDs in the NBA. Show me a sport, and I'll show you a dirty sport. Show me a sport with money, incentive. Never underestimate the power of incentive. The incentive right now in the NBA is too great. They're handing out $10 million contracts, $15 million contracts to guys that are 7th on the bench, 8th on the bench. This league is flush with money. When that's the case, there are players dying, willing to cheat, to be a part of it. You can guarantee it. And it has nothing in that respect to do with basketball, any sport, any game of life for that matter. With that much money involved, people are going to be willing to cheat to get there. TJ Quinn, one of the best investigative reporters for ESPN for Outside the Lines, has said drug tests are not really drug tests. They're intelligence tests. Anyone with a modicum of intelligence, the slightest ability, can pass a drug test. If you pass simple rules, if you know when to take them, when to flush them, when it's coming, you can do it. The guys that get busted are the dumb ones, the ones that cannot follow the rules. You cannot tell me that the NBA is different than every other sport, that somehow baseball is dirty, the Olympics are dirty, but the NBA is clean. The NBA is dirty like every other sport where the incentives are high. And if you doubt me, ask O.J. Mayo, Rashard Lewis, Darius Miles, Don McClain, and a host of others who've already been busted for PEDs.
There's a lot of generalities in what you just said. There are nothing but generalities in what George Karl said. And it's hard for me to address George Karl because when he's here, I did a lot of NBA shows, and personally, I like him a lot. Where I come from in this particular instance in rebuttal to you is I am the only person at ESPN that's ever worked for another big entertainment company that has been accused for years, for decades, of abusing PEDs and or steroids. You have to be careful when you're saying steroids as a blanket statement and a blanket word and says there's a problem with steroids in the NBA. Steroids do not help you play in the NBA. They would hinder you. Now, do certain people use PEDs? Absolutely. Do certain people use HGH? Okay. I'm a big proponent of if you are hurt, I want to see the best players be able to play. And if HGH can help you recover to get back to playing, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is a coach writing a book and saying there's an issue with steroids as if every single thing underneath it is a steroid, and you're saying that guys are abusing them using generalities. If you want to throw this out there, George Karl, then give me specifics. Tell me you saw somebody in the locker room using steroids. Tell me you saw somebody buying steroids and you have facts. He has no facts. And what they came out with, at least probably the publisher, was these quotes so we would talk about them so people would buy this book. You have a lot of facts with what you're saying, but there's a lot of generalities too, because there aren't people other than occasionally like a TJ Quinn going to where it actually happens. And I don't think, and I guarantee you, that steroids do not help a basketball player in what they need to do.
Okay, but to be clear, you take an issue with how George Karl said what he said.
Correct.
But do you think he's wrong?
Yes.
Do you think there is not a PED problem in the NBA?
No. They said the headline was steroids, and then you go
His
into
quote
it.
limit to
I do
steroids?
not think there's a PED
He said
problem.
PEDs and let me clear. He said PEDs and steroids.
Let me
he didn't
understand.
He
Let
said
me understand.
it's obvious some players are doping. So that kind of falls under
Right, and he's talking about going over and getting the spin cycle blood and everything of that nature. If you're using PEDs and he said drug problems, painkillers and that, I was around all of that. I used a lot of painkillers in my day because we were wrestling 4 or 5 days a week. You cannot function at a high level if you're abusing these type of drugs week in and week out. And guys that I've been around lost their jobs because they could not function.
But I would
to
say
play
that
in the NBA,
prescription pills aren't necessarily doping.
I'm talking about all of it.
Okay,
PEDs,
right. Let me-
if you're using it, it's going to affect how you operate as an athlete and an individual.
Okay, so
and
let
you
me-
can't maintain in the NBA.
Let me respond, and I'm going to be clear about what I'm debating here. The question I'm
Okay.
answering is whether or not George Karl is right or wrong. I'm not debating whether or not people should be allowed to use PEDs, whether or not it's helpful. We've had that conversation at various times on different programs. It's a completely different conversation. The question right now is whether or not George Karl is right. Many people mocked Jose Canseco when he wrote his book the first time, suggesting the steroids were rampant in baseball.
Okay.
Jose Canseco got the last laugh. He was right. Now, George Karl, you're right, is making generalities. He's not being specific. But that also doesn't mean, Coach, that he's wrong. He didn't.
There's a huge difference between baseball and basketball.
Fine.
Huge difference.
Fine.
And it will help you in baseball.
He didn't limit
it doesn't
to
help you in
steroids.
basketball.
He didn't limit steroids. This would include HGH, EPO, anything that would help you recover. And if you're telling me that basketball is somehow exempt or clean or free from all these things,
It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
It would make it
a
the
few
only-
instances.
it'd make it the only sport on earth then.
That it's not a problem?
Yes.
There's not rampant use?
The only high-level sport, yes.
This sport is so much different in how you prepare as opposed to football and or baseball. And to say that guys are abusing it.
What does the word abuse mean? What does that mean? You keep saying
using too much in order to cheat, in order to play. If you're using HGH, there's a lot of people out there that condone.
Honestly, it's not about abuse. It's against the rules. You're either using it or you're not.
He said you're abusing it. He said there is a problem.
No, he said
I don't believe
players
there is
are
a problem.
doping.
And unless you give me more than 2 or 3 names, like George Karl does not do, you can't write a book and then not give me names. If you're saying there's a problem, then you've seen it.
I'd be careful with that position. I mean, just like Jose Canseco.
I'd be
George
careful,
Karl will have
but
the
I'm not
last
writing
laugh.
a book.
George Karl will have the last laugh.
I'm not writing a book. If you're gonna say this, you have to go all the way. The one thing I know about writing a book, if you're gonna write it and you're gonna accuse people of this, you better have facts to back it up.
He hasn't accused anyone. He's saying it's a problem in the NBA. Is he wrong?
That's accusing a lot.
That's
Just
not
without
indicting.
names.
That's not indicting
absolutely
everybody.
Just to clarify, though,
It absolutely is.
Just to clarify, though, he never said it was a problem. He just said it's obvious some players are doping. So he's not saying
Now you're saying
everybody.
it's semantic.
But
You guys
just
are
to
making my
clarify-
argument for me.
My argument's very simple. He's not wrong.
You cannot come.
He's not wrong.
But you haven't given me any examples to show me that he's right.
You're right. It's circumstantial. It's
Yes.
circumstantial. And
Yes.
I will win this
Yes.
argument over time.
Time will definitely tell.